Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister N.K. Stalin today organized the first joint action committee meeting for the states to be affected by the delimitation exercise. Now, this joint action committee meeting, which was held in Chennai, had called for an all-party meeting on March 5th. Now, the question which everybody is asking is that will this delimitation be fair? In fact, fair delimitation signage was seen outside the Chennai Corporation building, which was the venue where this meeting happened. But by and large, this meeting was attended by chief ministers of Kerala, Telangana, and Punjab. Karnataka Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivakumar also attended the meeting. And the basic points which came out from the meeting were a resolution was passed to freeze the delimitation for 25 years. But the big question which we are asking that is this delimitation exercise an attack on federalism? Will this delimitation exercise end the political voice of the southern states? Joining me now is R. Rangaraj, who's a senior journalist who joins us from Chennai. Thank you so much, Mr. Rangaraj, for joining. And we have Mr. Siddharth Sharma, who's an independent media analyst. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for joining. And I'll begin with Mr. Rangaraj. I think you must have been privy to the joint action meeting which happened today. How significant was this as far as coming together of all the states is concerned, and various other parties? In fact, Bhagwant Mann, BRS, several other parties also joined this meeting. Yes, Mr. Rangaraj.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Uh, it's quite an eventful day, and it was quite unique in several respects because, in many ways, it was a very unusual kind of meeting. Granted that there were four chief ministers, two deputy chief ministers, and there were representatives from parties from seven states, cutting across the north-south divide. Because originally it was planned as a south exercise. So apparently, the DMK must have thought to make it a little wider and enlarge the scope of their agenda, and they've sort of included three other states like Orissa, Punjab, and so on. So now it's kind of acquired a national picture rather than a mere south versus north issue, which might have been portrayed that way in some circles. So these are now affected states, or states which would be affected by the delimitation exercise in case they carry out the number of seats at 543 based on the projected population in 2026. So if that were to be that was to be the basis for the union government to carry out a delimitation, then states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana, Kerala, Karnataka, and also Punjab and one or two other states may also lose seats. Roughly about, they say it's about 44 seats that these seven states could lose if the delimitation is carried out in accordance with the population of 2026. The second thing is, if the number of seats are increased to 848 based on projected population 2026, the gap becomes even wider. For example, it means UP can go from 80 to 143, and BR almost double from 40 to 79. And then there'll be a marginal increase for Tamil Nadu from 39 to 49, Andhra, Telangana about 10 seats, etc. So this would mean a widening of the gap between some of these Hindi power-built states and the south states, which may sound to be politically, let's say, unstable relationship between the union government and many of these states. So that is really the issue.
Allow me to interrupt you. Recently, when Mr. Amit Shah, Home Minister, who had come to Coimbatore, and he spoke about the pro rata basis. And that created further confusion. In fact, Mr. Stalin still referred about that pro rata basis, and people said that it's trying to create further confusion. Now, what, according to you, is this understanding about the pro rata basis? What do you think Amit Shah means by saying that, the seats would be increased or enhanced by a pro rata basis? What does that actually mean? And how is it really going to unfold? And what does it manifest into?
Yeah, the use of the word prorata is quite vague. I mean, if you really do a proper exercise of the delimitation and then you go by number of constituencies that would be increased, the important question is what is the data you're going by? So, prorata of what? So, if you go by population of 2026 and you apply a prorata growth, that becomes a lopsided thing, as I was mentioning to you a little earlier. Like states like UP and BR, they'll almost double the number of seats. So one interpretation is that the center is quiet on this because if the BJP wants to gain significantly in the delimitation exercise in the run-up to the elections for 2029, if that is what the game is about, then they are looking to enlarge the number of seats in the cow belt, while assuring that South seats will not go down. See, what happens is if South gets a few seats extra, so Amit Shah statement is South will not lose a single seat. But what are the other states getting? That is the question. So in pro rata of what number or what is the benchmark? Pro rata of what? So what these states are now saying is you should go by the 1971 census and apply, if you want to apply pro rata on that basis, then it will be that the existing formula is applied percentage wise. Then percentage wise, the gap doesn't widen. In other words, if the 1971 census is followed, there will be some increase for various states, but it will be directly proportionate to the present arrangement. On the other hand, if they go by 2026 formula and say pro rata of that, that, as I mentioned to you earlier, will mean largest for the so-called the cow belt states. That is really the issue. Pro rata of what? Amit Shah has not specified whether they're going to apply the 1971 census or
Yes.
they're going to apply 2026 census. He's delightfully vague about it.
Yeah, that's what. So deliberately, this vagueness is put up by the central government. Is that what you
Yes,
feel, Mr. Rajat?
yes, yes.
All right.
Yeah, at one point, Prime Minister Modi sometime back had made a casual remark that if the delimitation exercise is carried out, the South could lose 100 seats. Now, I don't know where this number comes from. Then, if so, that's a situation which is unpalatable. Then the
Right.
delimitation exercise, if it's carried out, it is meant to be a kind of political exercise. Now, there is an example. If you see what they did in Jammu and Kashmir, before the Jammu and Kashmir elections were postponed 3-4 times. And then before the election was held, there was a delimitation exercise. And he found that the number of seats for Jammu were increased. And the other constituencies, in the name of delimitation, some of the pockets where this National Conference or PDP will do very well, some of those constituencies were shifted to adjoining constituencies, thereby diminishing the chances of some powerful candidates of NC or PDP. So there was a very subtle political exercise in the delimitation formula that was followed in Jammu and Kashmir. So you can trust the BJP to do a similar delimitation exercise, which will suit them politically. Now that is what all these parties. Now, the second point that you must note in this exercise is, it's very interesting that the ruling party of Telangana, which is the Congress, Revanth Reddy was there, and the main opposition party of the BRS, represented by KT Ramarao, by its working president, who is the son of the former Chief Chandrasekhar Rao. He was present, and he was quite vocal. Now, similarly, you have from Punjab, you have AAP, represented by its Chief Minister Man today, even though they have been at loggerheads recently in the Delhi elections, AAP and the Congress. but there was some bonhomie about all of them coming and arriving and exchanging pleasantries. Similarly, in Kerala, you have the CPM and CPI, the left front, represented fully by Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, but equally so, there were some allies of the Congress party, the Kerala Congress, IUML, and so on. They were all willing to sit together and talk about this and pass a resolution about what they should do. So there is a
But
commitment from
right,
the major two parties, as the ruling party and the main opposition as well, in some of
right.
these states, which I thought is very unique and very unusual exercise. They have, and similarly, YSR Congress in Andhra, though they are not part of the India Alliance or the Congress or Left Front, or they are quite aloof. They have also sent a representative and they also sort of a letter to the Prime Minister today on behalf of the YSR Congress in Andhra Pradesh, demanding that fair delimitation should be done. So it has gone beyond the confines of some parties which were traditionally seen as part of the old India bloc. You know, whether this is going to lead to some kind of India 2.0, we don't know.
Hmm.
But there are makings of
Right.
parties, regional parties coming together on a
I think we'll
federal
have
setup.
Right. I think we'll have to wait whether this India 2.0 happens or not. But coming back to the delimitation part of it, I'll come back to you, Rangraj. But Siddharth, I'll come to you now. That do you see this meeting of today, which was held in Chennai, which has just been preceded by an all-party meeting, which was held on March 4th, March 5th. Now, do you see this as a significant step towards freezing this entire delimitation exercise? And do you think that the opposition can really succeed? Or rather, all the parties which have come together, like YSR, which Rangaraj just mentioned, uh, uh, can they achieve success? Because during Vajpayee's time, the delimitation was frozen. And it was frozen for 26 years, and which is why now the next delimitation is supposed to happen in 2026. But now, with such a government which has a brute majority and no one is sure whether they will listen to the opposition parties or not. So, how hopeful are you that the concerns of the opposition on delimitation will be addressed by the center? Yes, Siddharth.
Niluji, I think Ranga has explained it beautifully. The number game, how it is going to pan out. One thing you asked him about pro rata. Pro rata is no rocket science. Pro rata simply means distribution based on a specific factor. Now, as of today, also the number of seats allocated to each state is on based on some specific factor, that is the population. So, when Mr. Amit Shah says that delimitation will happen on some pro rata basis, it is no rocket science, no new terminology. It's based on a specific factor. That is what it is even today. So that nothing new is coming out. Now, this isn't a delimitation exercise at all. Rather, this is a gerrymandering exercise to reduce seats in state that BJP is weak in and increase its seats in its stronghold. I'll explain how. First things first, India is a union of states, period. Article 1 clearly states that. That means government of India ceases to exist without the consent of the states. That also Union of India has to have the blessing of states to enact anything affecting people of that state. So now what is delimitation? Now, for example, if there is 100 rupees is divided amongst we three panelists, each of us get 33 rupees and a little bit of change. Now, what if I suggest that Niluji, your share of 33 will remain, I will guarantee your share of 33 remains as it is, but let me increase the pool from 100 rupees to now 1000 rupees. Now, after that, Niluji is stuck with her old share of 33 rupees, but the rest of us, that is me and Ranga, we'll end up with 483 rupees each. That is a net loss for Niluji, isn't it? Now, why this happened is that the delimitation is that in 1970s, two things happened, and both things coincided incidentally. One, India redrew its Lok Sabha seats based on population and capped it at 543. And number two, India started family planning schemes. Now, since then, till now, certain states have slowed down their population growth and certain states have not been able to do so. Proof of it is the total fertility rate, that is called as TFR. That is the population growth which adds births and subtracts deaths to arrive at a constant growth rate. Now Bihar and UP at nearly 3 TFR of 3 is the double of the rate of Karnataka, which is less than 1.5. So essentially, Karnataka's share of population to India has gone down in the last 50 years. So, if new Lok Sabha seats are allotted based on population, Karnataka's representation will shrink at the national stage. It's as simple as that. A punishment for diligently following center's family planning schemes. And UP and Bihar will get rewarded for flunking that scheme. Now, it is like failing the most intelligent student in the class deliberately while promoting the most mischievous one. Now, with fresh BJP floated delimitation exercise, all the southern states plus Orissa plus West Bengal plus Punjab and a few others will lose proportional seats to the cow belt. That is what is going to happen. Now, as per the 2011 census, South India has 20% of India's population and 24% of the Lok Sabha seats. The South the other paradoxically, even though population is 20%, its Lok Sabha representation is 24%. The South's contribution to India's GDP is 36%. Now, tomorrow, what if India says that when you say pro rata, let us not go by constitution, let us go by GDP, because GDP is also very important. Now, if the new Lok Sabha South India gets less than present 24% of representation, naturally they will object. This is exactly why ruling as well as main opposition parties of 7 states comprising nearly one-third Lok Sabha seats have convened today to uphold the federalism enshrined in the constitution. Now, by comparison, BJP is today in power with less than one-third number of seats, less than one-third vote share. So BJP's vote share is one-third. Today, more than one-third people got together. Now, henceforth, politically, what I think is going to happen is that this will become a very neat, constitutionally valid, logical, creative, and mass supported ideological polarization to the entire BJP ecosystem hegemonic narrative. This will become the true India bloc, whatsoever its name can be, nomenclature might change in the future. To a large extent, this also syncs with Gandhiji's power decentralization model, in addition to fitting Article 1 of Indian Constitution like a neat glove. It will fit cleanly into the Article 1 of the Constitution. That is
After
why
which we
one-third of India came together today at Chennai. That is what happened today.
what this thing is very clear that if this delimitation exercise goes ahead and the center plans to go ahead with the same criteria and the benchmarks, then of course the southern India or the southern Indian states will lose their political voice. Is this not going to be a reality?
That is the reality. That is why they have come together, because they have, as of today, whatever the number of seats, they have 24% Lok Sabha seats for the South India. Now, in the new delimitation, whether it is 543 or 888, they need to be given 24 or more than 24. They cannot be given less than 24. It is not about the numbers to a state that you can increase. You can increase Tamil Nadu by 5 seats, and if you increase UP by 50 seats, that is why I gave you an example that if we divide 100 rupees between we three people, it will be 33 rupees. But if I say that Niluji, your 33 will remain 33, but I change the denominator to make it 1000 rupees between us two, then me and Rangarajan will end up with 500 rupees each, and you will be left still with 33 rupees. So it is not about the number of seats of the Lok Sabha. It is the proportion of the Lok Sabha that
Yeah.
South India has one-third of the total number of seats. That is 24% of Lok Sabha seats, nearly 20% of the population. Both of them match together. So I think what the 7 states today came together, they will stand very vociferously that their percentage of seats in the Lok Sabha, whatever the new number is, whether it is 543 or whether it is 888 or a very Sanatani good number of 1008, Shri Shri 1008 Shri bolte hai na. So BJP might also decide that 1008 is a very good number for India. But whatever it is, the South India will say we need 24% of seats. If you don't give that, it will not work out.
Okay, so how does it impact the federal structure? I'm also worried about that. Rangarajan, if you could explain, because a lot of people are saying that this is a direct attack on the federal structure. And if at all the center goes ahead with its plan, how is it really going to impact? And will these parties, all of them who have come together today in the Joint Action Committee meeting, can they go ahead and challenge this decision of the delimitation? Is it challengeable in the court of law? Yes,
Yeah,
Rangaraj?
that'll be one of the options that they will examine. They've already fixed the venue for the next meeting. I think Revant Reddy wanted to host the next meeting. So, so that is kind of fixed the next meeting. So that's good in a way. Uh, it used to be said jocularly that conferences are held to decide the date and venue of the next conference. So that used to be a joke in the past. But in this case, it's a positive sign that they have agreed to meet again. And there's already the host in Hyderabad. And they will probably decide a frame of action is to put pressure on the center. For example, they want the center union government to make a statement on this issue in parliament. That's the first issue that they are where they're putting pressure. Where the union government has to spell out its stand on what it proposes by way of delimitation, and mere words like the seats will not come down, as Siddharth has already explained. That the aim of these parties is to ensure that the present share is in terms of the percentage is not varied. That the present whatever the difference in number of seats, it will continue to remain whether you apply the whatever be the formula. They want the same number of percentage of seats. So the gap should not widen in that sense. So that is more essential. Whatever, so automatically, whatever be the number of seats, the percentage is maintained. That's one way of going about it. But we don't know what Amit Shah has up his sleeve. So we know that various legislations have been proposed in the recent past, like CAA, Uniform Civil Code. A lot of things are said. When the draft bill comes, you have to go through the fine print and see how far one is affected or one is not affected. So it all depends on the kind of bill that is brought forward. In this case, a delimitation commission will be empowered with this task. So at that time, they'll have to spell out what do they mean, because it does not merely confine itself to the number of seats. It's also the constituencies that are going to be identified. And
No,
also
but
SC and ST
but don't you
constituencies
think,
have to be earmarked.
Samira, there is so much of confusion, there is so much of anxiety with so many political parties. Don't you think that the right step on the part of the center would have been to call an all-party meeting, flesh out those details, project some clarity on this issue? Uh, wasn't that the immediate thing which the center should have done? And if they are not doing it, is there something they are hiding from the political parties?
If you see the modus operandi of the BJP government, that's not never been the case. They have never held an all-party exercise on various issues, whether it should have been discussed and debated there first, whether it's a farmers' bill that suddenly an ordinance is brought to implement it, whether it's the CAA, whether it's all other issues, there should be a national debate. Why this is not being done, one wonders. Because there are various opinions that are bound to come. India is a huge country, and there are lots of people who are going to come up with ideas and suggestions. So why not the government throw it open and say, give your suggestions and we'll go into it? And why can't they have several rounds of all-party meetings, one at the national level and followed it up with regional meetings? Because the regional parties also have their say. So that kind of an exercise should be done in an open and transparent manner, and valuable and useful sessions should be taken into account, and not rush through some bill just because you have a majority in parliament and you think you can push it through. All the president will issue an ordinance and you will get it going. That shouldn't be the way these important pieces of changes in this country should be done. Federalism apart, you have to go through this exercise. It has to be discussed in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The state assemblies should also discuss this, go into various pros and cons, and all these sessions should come to the center. And then they should place them before the Delimitation Commission, which should look into it and then carry out an equitable form of delimitation exercise which can pass muster. At the moment, it looks more like a political exercise in trying to improve the number of seats that the BJP can try and target for the next Lok Sabha polls. That's what it looks like at the moment. And if that past uh, management of various legislations the country we have seen is, they may try to ride roughshod over opposition. So you should notice the kind of coverage that was put out by the so-called national television channels from this morning on this huge meeting. There are 4 chief ministers, there are 2 deputy chief ministers, there are 7 parties involved across the country, and holding a huge percentage of representing a huge percentage of population in this country, and a very important issue. And the frivolous and casual manner in which the national channels were running a kind of campaign against these 7 parties coming together, calling for fair delimitation. Look at the kind of propaganda that was unleashed by these channels, which are more loyal than the king. And then you have more coverage given to opposition party like the BJP trying to show black flags. I said that was a bigger exercise than this delimitation meeting, where you have and you see the lopsided kind of coverage right from this morning.
No. I want to understand those details. Was BJP protesting? Because I read on a few websites that there was a protest by the BJP.
Yeah, you see, the Annamalai state BJP, the BJP, if you see, they didn't even attend the all-party meeting convened by the DMK government. They about 100 parties were involved.
Yeah.
All parties of all hues and shades were called to discuss this. BJP was a notable absentee in the all-party meeting. Why did they keep away? Right. On top of it, when this exercise is going on by the affected states, they're making fun of this exercise and ridiculing them and conducting some kind of a parallel show to try to show as if this exercise is a sham, as if it's a fake, and then try to run it down. Why? You should wait and see what are the suggestions given by this meeting, and then let the union government consider them, let the BJP also consider them. They can hold a meeting of the national executive and they can discuss the delimitation exercise. Well, that is what is the proper thing that you would expect of a party that is running the government. Instead, they've unleashed a propaganda war against these people calling for fair delimitation. They're not saying they're against delimitation. They're calling for a fair and proper policy of delimitation. What is wrong with it? Why can't you wait for sessions? After all, even when Mrs. Gandhi was Prime Minister, the opposition conclaves were held by largely convened by N.T. Ramarao, largely consisting of opposition parties. But what did even the Congress party do? They formed the Sarkaria Commission to go into the recommendations of this conclave. And the Sarkaria Commission gave far-reaching and wide, very good suggestions to improve the federal structure of the country, improving the tax devolution, etc. And the Sarkaria Commission is even quoted several times today, the way assemblies are being run or dismissed and so on. It had far-reaching implications. So that is what one would expect a government to do, to invite suggestions, and this exercise itself is good in a way.
Right.
They can consider those suggestions and see what we can include in our delimitation exercise. But on the contrary, we have seen a kind of campaign, a kind of political propaganda campaign run obviously at the base of the obviously the base of the BJP. These so-called national television channels, are they only Hindi cobbled channels? Are they not concerned about South India? Yeah. Do South India do they have a fair case or not? If their seats are given up, why can't these channels hold a debate on that? And then you interview them and ask them. None of that has happened. Right from the morning, they've been running a kind of a vicious campaign to please the BJP bosses. What else can you say? I'm very sorry to say I'm from the media, but I'm ashamed to see this kind of coverage by the national so-called national TV channels. It was disgusting.
You've raised important points, but we'll have to go on the last lap of our discussion and coming to you somehow. Now that the next meeting's venue has been fixed, that's going to be in Hyderabad. I'm sure Revant Reddy is going to host it. And Yes, Rango.
No, I'm sorry. You asked me a question. I forgot to answer that part of it. The BJP Annamalai making those charges and the reason for the black flag thing. one very interesting observation that he made was they are protesting because Karnataka government is insisting on the Meghdadu project, which is going to affect Tamil Nadu. Now, Mr. Annamalai is probably not aware. In fact, he hails a good part of his service came from Karnataka. Because Basavaraj Bommai was the BJP chief minister, son of Bommai, of course. Anyway, forget about it. And he proposed the Meghdadu project while the BJP was in power a few years ago. In 2021 and 2022, there are records of his meeting the then Jal Shakti Minister Shekhawat and pressing for implementation of the Meghdadu project, ignoring Tamil Nadu protests. But Mr. Annamalai chooses to say that the Meghdadu project it's a betrayal today in the sense by the Tamil Nadu government. But what about his own BJP government, which pushed the Meghdadu project? So it is this lopsided presentation of issues which is really causing concern. So they're not really going to the merits of the issue. If the Meghdadu project is wrong, it is bad, he should have first blamed his own BJP government for having initiated it in Karnataka. But there's none of it. He should have shown black flag then to the BJP chief minister when he comes to a national meeting or to any other part of the state. So that's not been the case.
Right. So I'll come to the end of the program, and Siddharth, what would be your concluding remarks, given the fact that the next venue meeting has already been fixed for Hyderabad? What can we expect the opposition parties now to do as their next step? And of course, the resolution has been passed that they will ease on the delimitation exercise. But how hopeful are you that the center is going to really hear them out, or center will pay heed to at all? Since there is no clarity, they've not bothered to call an all-party meeting. BJP has been an absentee, as Ranga just explained, in the all-party meeting which was called. So, which means that the government is not very keen on, clearing the clouds on this whole delimitation exercise. And if they want to just ramp on and they want to go ahead with this process, how do you think is going to end up? And what are the what are the options then left with the opposition parties towards the end? Very, very briefly. Yes.
Yeah, very briefly. Forget about the rhetorics anyone and everyone is using. The proof of the pudding is in its eating. BJP in the last 10 years under BJP in India, Article 1 has been totally violated because Article 1 says that India is a union of states. In the last 10 years, the number of states in India has come down because you broke away one state called Jammu and Kashmir, made it into two union territories, had Delhi as a state, you brought in an ordinance and took out all its powers. The proof of the pudding is very clear that BJP is anti-federalism. There is enough proof of it. Now, this, as I said, isn't a delimitation exercise. It is rather a gerrymandering exercise to reduce seats in the states that BJP is weak in and increase the number of seats in its stronghold. But coming together, but the contrary thing is that the good thing that has happened is coming together of Team India in 2023 elections prior to the Lok Sabha elections was a mere mathematical coalition. The fair delimitation demand in 2025 today is going to be a chemical and cultural coalition. BJP is going to get singed by this. BJP is going to get singed by this because BJP is on record. BJP stands. BJP has violated Article 1 of the Constitution to its teeth. The most violated constitutional provision in India under BJP has been Article 1 itself, which says that India is a union of states. But in the BJP's rule, the number of states have come down, number of union territories have increased. Now, I think that is why these states have come together. This, unlike the 2023 India bloc, it was a mathematical coalition. This coalition has a cultural and a chemical component to it. This is going to bond very strongly. I don't know what its name is going to be in the future. The nomenclature might change, but the India bloc has taken off a leap today. That's what I think, because this comprises 1/3 of India. Please,
absolutely,
anybody who is seeing any channel, forget about even if you're watching some Godi media or national media channels, please understand this is 1/3 of India sitting today in Chennai. That's a huge number, very huge number.
Right. So we'll have to wait and watch now what happens in the next delimitation meeting, which is going to be held in Hyderabad. And we'll also have to wait and watch as to what the center's next step will be. Will they issue some clarity? Will they call for an all-party meeting? We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Mr. Rangaraj, for joining on the Federal. Siddharth, thank you so much for joining. Thank you.